Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Sony Open DFS Tactics show. We've got a late start, obviously, later start than we normally do, being an hour behind thanks to a scheduling conflict I had. But no fear, we have everything you need to dominate your DFS contest this week or to make the optimal last-minute wagers. We have the updated forecast for Honolulu and Waialae Country Club, the ownership projections, of course my rankings, everything you will need to win this week. Got a good show for you all, so let's not waste any time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best tool out there for golf analytics. There are a lot of great tools out there, don't get me wrong. I simply believe that Fantasy National is the best one for you. It has everything that you need to dominate week in and week out for your wagers and for the DFS contests. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where I post research usually every Monday around previous winners, some course history, every Monday on the for the PGA Tour. That came out again this past Monday. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do every week on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site, X or Instagram. X is also where I place two other pieces of content, my weekly betting cards and my weekly player exposure in the DFS contests that I play. So if you want to see the wagers and my player pool or player exposure for every week, give me a follow over at X. And then lastly, for social media, Gabe's X handle is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. Unfortunately, I was not able to join him this Wednesday night, but if you are a subscriber to his article, which is free to do, by the way, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday as we continue the DFS talk over there after calls and a usual schedule. Tonight, just a little bit different, but hopefully you were in Gabe's Substack chat. I know he created a new one for 2024, had a lot of good insights. We've talked back and forth today, so go show Gabe some support. Follow him over on social media, subscribe to that article. Again, it is free to do so. And then lastly, we are live, chat is open, want to hear from you all. Who are your top plays this week for the Sony Open? Who is your winner? Who are you pivoting to, fading away from, all of that. And of course, if you are watching live, I would love to hear your response to the poll question, which I need to type up and put into chat. So I will be doing that momentarily after the intro. But would love to hear from the community. Again, who are your top plays, fading away from, any 6K plays that you all have. I definitely have a couple that I want to recommend to you all. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 Sony Open. And we're going to start, as we customarily do on a DFS Tactics show, with the updated forecast over at Windfinder. Good evening, Gabe. Thanks for jumping in chat again. Apologies that I was not able to join you in your chat due to some scheduling conflicts that I had. But hopefully you had a good chat over there. A lot of good discussion. Would love to hear your thoughts about the Sony Open. Let me type up this poll question here very, very quickly. Let's see. So the poll question is, in general, how well do you see or do you think the Century players perform this week? And I need to add some options here. In general, excellent, meaning several top 10s. Good, contenders, and a few top 20s. Poor, no one inside the top 10, or awful, no one inside the top 20. So let me put that poll out there for you all. Would love to hear your opinion on such question. But we're here at the Wind Finder forecast. No super forecast, unfortunately. But what we have looks like tomorrow is going to be the windiest of the days. Looks like it starts out fairly calm in the morning, looking at probably low teens in terms of sustained winds, maybe gusts into the 20s. And then by the time the late morning or early afternoon start, you're getting some of the worst winds of the week. Sustained winds into the 20s. You have gusts nearing 30. And there's some potential for some rain here in terms of at YLI Country Club in Honolulu, late tomorrow. With that said, if this rain does truly come, I think there is a pretty good advantage for the latest of the late Thursday PM players. With rain, there's always a chance of a delay, a pushback into Saturday morning as far as your cut. We look at the rest of the week. Friday and Saturday look fairly innocuous, I guess, for Honolulu standards. Winds maybe getting into the teens, and then gusts maybe reaching 20 perhaps. But Gabe also had a very good note on social media earlier this evening in the fact that there has been a lot of rain, there was a lot of wind earlier this week at YLI. So the course is going to be probably softer than what we are used to seeing it. Again, all of this is to say, I think there is a decent advantage for the latest of late Thursday PM, Friday AM, especially since you see the wind direction changes when this weather system comes through. And those who have the latest of late tee times on Thursday are playing the same course, the same cardinality of wind direction. Whereas those Thursday morning and in the earliest of the Thursday PM is going to have a wind change. And the course is going to play a little different. I don't know how much of an advantage I would give, but I do think it is prudent to give the latest of the Thursday PM and the earliest of Friday AM starters a little bit of an advantage. And then Saturday looks pretty nice, and Sunday looks fantastic. High of 72, very, very little wind on Sunday. So looking like it could be an absolute scoring fest on Sunday. So we're going to try to, as we always do, try to get 6 of 6 through. I think the best way to do that is going to have a little bit of an advantage on these very late Thursday PM tee times. So there's the updated forecast here at Windfinder. With that, we have the filters of moderate and windy selected in Fantasy National. In the past couple of years, our top performers in windy conditions, moderate and windy conditions: Will Zalatoris, Keegan Bradley, Matt Fitzpatrick, Chris Kirk, Corey Connors, Billy Horschel, Emiliano Grillo, Hideki, Brian Harmon, and Tom Hoagie. Here's your top 10 in terms of wind, and this really matters a lot for Thursday, tomorrow, maybe a little bit into Friday, but mainly this is for Thursday and your players who have played well in the wind. But even with that amount of wind, we didn't see anything drastic in terms of sustained winds into the 30s. There isn't rain throughout the entirety of the tournament. I still believe, and we'll see this in the mixed condition model, I still believe that this is going to play relatively easy. A winning score probably at or around 20 under. So our top players in the past calendar year in rounds that are easy, those players have been Alex Noren, Ludwig Aubert, Eric Cole, Adam Hadwin, Doug Gim, Chris Kirk, Luke List, JT Poston, Stefan Jaeger, and Tyler Duncan. And you'll see when we go to the mixed condition model, I'm hedging quite a bit that I still think Waialae is going to play easy this week. So if it doesn't, I could be in quite a bit of trouble. But speaking of the mixed condition model, let's go ahead and jump straight into it. That way you know where my rankings are getting their basis from, and you know where you can make your adjustments perhaps. Looks like we have a couple of answers here in terms of the poll. Again, if you're watching live, I ask that you answer that question. Looks like good contenders and a few top 20s. I would probably tend to agree with that. I don't know if there's going to be several top 10s, but when we get to the end of the show, my one and done and whatnot, you will see that I have a couple players I'm going to focus on that were at Kapalua last week. All right, in terms of our mixed condition model for this week, 10% in strokes gained approach, backed this off from 15% last year. Look, the most important shot type here is putting. We've seen that all week. Siwoo really dominated with the irons last year, but it's really all about the putting. You think about Hideki's win in 2022. He was majority in terms of putting. Most of your top 10s, especially your top 5s, all about the putting. So only 10% in approach, but it is going to be a facet that you don't want to ignore this week. 15% in Bermuda putting on average and fast speed greens. I wasn't confident looking at just fast, especially with the amount of rain that they've had this week. And if that wind really does pick up tomorrow, I can envision a scenario where the PGA and the Waialae grounds crew superintendents want to slow down those greens. That way they're playable if the winds are truly up like the forecast has. So I'm going to be looking at average and fast speed Bermuda greens, but it is still the most important shot type here, 15% on average and fast Bermuda greens. And we go into the scoring, and we spent a lot of time this week around scoring. That was some of the in-depth material that I put out on social media regarding past winners of the Sony. 10% in opportunities gained. That could be a little bit heavy. Again, as I mentioned last week where I was at Kapalua, I was kind of going on my little tangent of bogey avoidance. This is kind of my angle that I'm using to attack this week. I would not fault you if you only wanted to put 5% into opportunities gained, but I'm going with 10% in opportunities gained because every single winner of the Sony in the past 10 years came to Waialae having been positive or having gained on the field the last time they played in opportunities. And because this is a scoring metric, I always prefer, when possible, to combine a scoring filter like easy with a scoring metric. So I've got 10% in opportunities gained when it's easy. Look, this course is still going to be easy even if the wind does pick up. So you're going to have to go low still. 10% in birdies or better gained when it's easy. In the last portion of the scoring part of the mixed condition model this week, 5% in bogey avoidance. We went through the prior leaderboards Monday night in the Data Dive show, and the more consistent results were in the bogey avoidance. The higher raw numbers, the higher totals were in the birdies or better gained, so that's why they're getting a higher percentage. But I think it's correct. you do not want to avoid or ignore bogey avoidance. So 5% in bogeys avoided when it's easy. And you can see, again, 25% of my mixed condition model is using the filter easy to par. So if this doesn't play easy, I'm going to be weak in that regard. So a lot of the mixed condition model inherently is based on Waialae playing easy this week. 10% in good drives gained on short courses. I started this week thinking that I wasn't going to use anything from this page view in Fantasy National, just like I didn't use anything last week at Kapalua. Then we looked at the prior leaderboards, and good drives gained was pretty consistent. And then we went into Microsoft Excel, looked at the specific data around Waialae, and good drives gained has gradually increased in importance year over year the past 5 years. So 10% in good drives gained on short courses. I used the short course filter as opposed to the easy course filter. I didn't want to go entirely into the easy to par filter, so I hedged a little bit and used the short course filter for good drives gained. 5% in total procs. I did not feel comfortable after looking directly at the 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. Did not feel comfortable looking at those ranges by themselves, considering they didn't seem to lend themselves to high-end success. Instead, I just saw more in terms of total procs. Now, certainly the most important ranges here at Waialae are 150 to 175. Again, we can look at that in the course breakdown very quickly. The most prominent approach shots here at Waialae fall from 150 to 200. But again, I did not see direct correlation between top end or elite performance and those specific ranges. So I stuck to 5% on total procs. Now the rest of the mixed condition model, 35% is left. And it's going to be very, very strange what's left. But let me explain that I really wanted to emphasize this. We've talked about it all week, how important par 4s are. Even though there are 4 par 3s still at Waialae, and 3 of those 4 fall between 175 and 200, they didn't really, in the end, they didn't really matter. Just like the specific ranges of proximities didn't equate to high-end success, neither did the par 3s. So no par 3s here, and that's another area where I could, in fact, be weak. If par 3s do matter, if they do, I think it's going to be the 175 to 200 length par 3s, but I don't have any par 3s, and you'll notice I don't have any par 5s. There are only 2 par 5s here at Waialae. They both seem to lend themselves equally in terms of the amount of importance. And another reason why I didn't want to do any par 5s, let me go to the par 5 tab here very quickly. This will be the best example I can give you. If we sort on performance on par 5s, you see Stefan Jaeger here is 11th. But there are only 2 par 5s here at Waialae, 0 to 500 and a 500 to 550. Look at his performance in those 2 ranges. They're actually pretty mediocre. Stefan Jaeger is better at longer par 5s, but Waialae doesn't have any. So instead of putting 5% in each of these par 5s, we would be putting 5% for one hole, essentially, on each of these par 5s. I did not think that was correct to do, so there's no par 5s. We are just solely focused on the par 4s. 20% from 400 to 450, 15% from 450 to 500. 10 of the 12 par 4s fall to this range, and historically the 400 to 450 have contributed slightly more than the 450 to 500 to upper leaderboard success at Waialae. So that's why the edge to the 400 to 450. So there's a look at the mixed condition model, the reasoning why I have and don't have some metrics in there. Hopefully I've given you a good idea of some ways that this mixed condition model could fall short, could be weak. Again, no par 3s, no par 5s if they happen to contribute a whole lot in terms of success. I am really banking on Waialae still playing easy this week, so if it doesn't, I'll be very weak to that. I don't foresee around the green playing a factor. If it does, I'll be weak. I don't foresee off the tee playing a factor. If it does, I'll be weak. So there's the mixed condition model for the Sony this week. So let's go ahead and go to the reveal of my rankings. And my rankings go as such. Number 1 this week is Russell Henley. Number 2, Alex Noren. Brian Harman, Adam Svensson, and JT Poston round out my top 5. Chris Kirk, Ben On, Ludwig Aubert, Brendan Todd, and Adam Hadwin round out my top 10. Quick reminder for those who have watched the show before, or for new viewers, for your information, my rankings are based on 3 criteria. The FNGC rank, which is a straight ranking based on the mixed condition model that we just covered. I do attempt to give players a course value, which is an attempt to rate how well a player has played the course, that specific course, in the past 5 years. You see someone like Ludwig Aubert is blank. He has not played Waialae before, or at least in a competitive round. So that's why you see a blank there. The lower the number, the better. And being DFS, we are trying to find unique options compared to the rest of our fellow contestants in these big GPPs, in DFS in general. So percent owned or projected ownership also factors into my rankings. Of course, the lower projected owned player, the higher they will rise. All right, in terms of my top 10, look, I don't really have a lot in terms of a surprise here. You might be a little bit surprised by Alex Noren. The guy demolishes par 4s, and he is the number 2 putter on average and fast Bermuda greens. He has one poor statistic of those that we've collected. It was in proximity. There's only 5%. He's the number 1 bogey avoider when a round is easy. Love Alex Noren this week. No real surprise about Russell Henley. He has always generally played Waialae very well. Of course, finishing second 2 years ago. Should have won. Kind of fell off at the back 9 and let Hideki catch him. But he's also a former winner way back in 2013 here at Waialae. Brian Harman has played well here. Svensson has played well here in 3 tries. Chris Kirk's always played well here. Ludwig Aubert, you see, even though he is getting hurt by the fact that he has never played here, he's number 2 analytically, and I don't understand why he's at 12% projected ownership. So I would be curious to hear from Gabe, who uses more than just Fantasy National in terms of ownerships, where he sees some of these players. So feel free to jump in chat, Gabe, and correct me or correct what you see. I just use Fantasy National. I think Aubert is going to be really good this week. I mean, number 4 and number 1 in the 2 ranges of par 4s. And he's been pretty good on average and fast Bermuda greens. Small sample size, but he's been pretty good. Brendan Todd has played well. A little bit, I think probably the biggest shock for me in my top 10 is Adam Hadwin, considering he's not played well here. He's getting helped by the fact that he is, at least per Fantasy National, not very popular. Not very popular. All right, so there's a look at my top 10. Enough rambling there. Let's go ahead and sort on this price board and figure out where our best pivots are going to be, who are some of the players we might want to fade, and so on. So in the 10Ks, in the 5 digits, we have 4 players this week. The aforementioned Ludwig Aubert at 10.5, Terrell Hatton at 10,300, Matt Fitzpatrick at 10.2, Sahith Theegala at 10,000 even. You see one player in the 10Ks that is completely distant in terms of rankings from the others. It's Matt Fitzpatrick. For whatever reason, the Fantasy National did not like him analytically based on the metrics that we gathered. He's not been the best at these short par fours. His irons haven't been all that great lately either. And when it's been easy, I've mentioned this before, and that's why I was kind of off of him at Kapalua. I more look at Matt Fitzpatrick when it's difficult. He actually doesn't play all that well, against others, relatively speaking, when it's easy. So Fitzpatrick's going to be a pretty big fade for me. I don't know how much of a limb that's going out on, since he's only at 10% right now. Tyrrell Hatton is your most projected owned player in the 10Ks at 15.5% per Fantasy National. Makes a lot of sense. He's a good putter, which is what you have to have here at YLI number 3 in these long par 4s. Doesn't have a bad statistic. It doesn't have any statistic that's red. So generally pretty solid. Approach has actually been his worst as well. I'm okay with that. But if Ludwig Aubert is indeed 3% more unique than Tyrrell Hatton, just give me all the Ludwig Aubert I can take. I doubt that's the case. I would expect Ludwig Aubert to be anywhere in the probably 17 to 20%. That would be my guess. I can just go by what Fantasy National has. So I really like Aubert this week. I tried to find ways to fade him in the fall. He always proved me wrong. Most famously so, the win at the RSM. Look, the few rounds he's played in the wind supposedly haven't been good. His irons supposedly haven't been good. I know he did not have a very good century at Kapalua. Debutantes tend to struggle there, generally speaking. I really like Ludwig Aubert this week, so I'm going to make him, as you would think, my top choice in the 10Ks. Sahith Theegala should be fine. Again, much like Matt Fitzpatrick, he kind of struggles when it's easy. But at 9%, I don't hate Sahith Theegala this week. Tyrrell Hatton will be fine. He's just going to be very popular. My guy took the week off relying on Fantasy National. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So it looks like you and I are going to be looking at the same data and trying to project off of that, which I don't know how you feel, but if indeed Ludwig Aubert is this much more unique than Tyrrell Hatton, I'm just all in on Aubert if that's the case. I imagine he'll be a little bit more popular than that, but I also think Tyrrell Hatton will be more than 15.5%. So I like Theegala. He, along with Aubert, is number 1 in these longer par 4s. Sahith Theegala has been a very good putter on Bermuda. So I like Theegala, but in the 10Ks, I will go Aubert first by a pretty wide margin. Sahith Theegala second. I will go Tyrrell Hatton third, and it's not like I don't, and I do like Tyrrell Hatton, I just don't like this ownership. This is more of a play on the ownership as opposed to the player. And then I am out on Fitzpatrick. I mostly target him when it's difficult, and as I've mentioned a couple times, I still foresee YLI playing easy this week. So there's a look at the 10Ks. Let's move to the 9s. You have Brian Harman, Corey Connors, Eric Cole, Russell Henley, Chris Kirk, Will Zalatoris, JT Poston, and Hideki. You got several players in the 9Ks this week, which I would think would tend to lend itself to having a lot of balanced builds be built this week. So, and I'm right there with them. I'm going to be having my fair share of balanced builds, but I think contrarian with Aubert is going to be a pretty strong play. But in the 9Ks, look, number 1 player, Russell Henley, not going to get away from him. This is chalk I will happily eat. Number 1 on these shorter par 4s. For all of the talk about him being, kind of shaky with the putter, he's been pretty good on fast and average Bermuda greens. He, like Tyrrell Hatton, does not have a red statistic. In fact, 31st. 31 is his highest, his worst statistic. 8th in irons. Top 10 in opportunities. #1 good drives gained player on short courses. I really like Russell Henley this week. I will eat that chalk. Brian Harman, the player's fine. Just like with Terrell Hatton, I don't like this ownership. I try to play Harman when he's contrarian. Chalky Brian Harman just doesn't feel good. Same with Corey Connors. Chalky Corey Connors just does not feel good, especially since the putter can be very, very bad. But you cannot ignore the amount of success that Corey Connors has had here at Waialae. 3 top 15s and a podium finish, a third. It's very hard to ignore. Use Corey Connors at your own risk. It's a good play. I don't blame you for doing it. But that's a lot of ownership. He is the most projected owned player per Fantasy National. Eric Cole should be fine. Again, very, very popular, I would think. But I think it's fine. I'm just so high on Russell Henley. I am most confident in Russell Henley that I will use Henley more than everyone else around him. Chris Kirk should be good. Even with the win at Kapalua, he's always played Waialae well. I don't expect that to change, although you have a good enough reason to avoid Chris Kirk if you think the win at Kapalua, that hangover effect, if you will, from the previous win, that's a good enough reason to fade him if you want. Look, your guess is as good as mine on Will Zalatoris. Coming back his first official event off of his injury. I know he played the Hero World Challenge, didn't particularly play it well. I don't put a whole lot of stock into that. I'm just going to wait on Will Zalatoris and see what he's like. So if I miss on him, I accept that risk. I accept losing to Will Zalatoris because I just don't know where he's at. Poston's going to be very, very popular. A good play. One that I would be comfortable using a few times. And Hideki, I don't know. He's won here 2 years ago. He plays well here generally. We haven't heard anything about his nagging injuries or the withdrawal risk. He does not putt well here, even though he did so in 2022. Generally speaking, he does not putt well here. He hasn't been good on these short par 4s. I don't know. I don't think I want much of Hideki. But that is a dangerous fade I'm going to have. So in the 9Ks, I'm going to use a whole lot of Russell Henley. Eat that chalk. I will use some JT Poston. That is some chalk I will eat. I'll have some Eric Cole. I'm going to try to limit my use of Brian Harman and Corey Connors a lot. Those two players I do not like much at all when they are popular. But Corey Connors is hard to ignore with the amount of success he's had at Waialae. Moving into the 8Ks, there isn't actually that many. Ben On, Siwoo Kim, Cam Davis, Denny McCarthy, Harris English, Justin Rose, Stephen Yeager, Adam Hadwin, and Keegan Bradley. You have a couple of players here like Justin Rose. He's never played Waialae. The analytics love him. Very good on these short par 4s. Good enough putter. That's a whole lot of ownership for Justin Rose. He had one very good day at Kapalua. Yes, it was Sunday. It was the getaway day, so you think he might carry that momentum here. Rose is probably a fade for me. There's too much noise in terms of lack of opportunities. Bogey avoidance when it's easy, he kind of struggles with, and that's going to kill you this week. So I'm going to fade Justin Rose. I want to like Yeager, but it's very lukewarm. I would be much more comfortable if par 5s mattered, as I highlighted right before going to the mixed condition model or during the mixed condition model. No thanks on Keegan. I generally try to focus on him on bent surfaces. Adam Hadwin rated 10th, and he's very unique. Okay, maybe. I like Denny McCarthy. He's generally played respectable here. I do expect a big jump this year at some point, whether that's a win or contending much more this year. That very well could happen here. at YLI at the Sony. As high as I am on Cam Davis for the year, this is another tournament that I'm just not there with him. He does perform well on par fours. That putter, I much more want to use him on, say, bent and Poa Anna, or bent surfaces. He also hasn't given himself a lot of opportunities. He struggled quite a bit at the Century, so I don't like his form. Bent on will be popular, probably for good reason. I don't want any part of Siwoo. Just no thanks. So in the 8Ks, I'll probably use some Hadwin just because he is so unique. Bent on I'll have a little bit. I'll be using quite a bit of Denny McCarthy. English, probably not. Jaeger, very little. This is kind of an area of the price board I haven't been. And again, talking about being contrarian, building these Ludwig Aubert type lineups, been kind of away from the 8Ks a little bit. But we'll get into the lineups a little bit later. Moving into the upper sevens. Look, I'm all in on Alex Noren. If he does not play well, I will lose. I really like Alex Noren this week. He's played YLI well in the past. Sub 10%. Like him a lot. I also like Brendan Todd. I don't know why he's only at 12.5%. Everything looks like it should be a full go for Brendan Todd. Very good putter on in general and on fast and average Bermuda greens. Loves shorter par fours. Brendan Todd might not be the best at going low, extremely low when it's easy. I don't foresee that being a problem this week. I like Brendan Todd. This Batia might be a struggle as much as P last week. Community member P shouted out Batia as the top debutante and looked like a great shot for the first 3 days. I don't think I feel all that good about Batia this week, especially since putting is so important here. He just has not shown consistent strides with the putter, especially on Bermuda. He's more of a Poa putter. Svensson, I think, is going to be very good. He's going to be very chalky. There's some more chalk I'll eat. Lucas Glover is going to be a fade. I know he's 12th in my rankings, supposedly. Lucas Glover is going to be a big fade. It's all about the putter, and he is the number one iron player here. I think those irons are going to cool off. I don't foresee him staying that hot with the irons. He does play extremely well when it's easy, so that's a little bit of a dangerous fade for me, but I just can't stomach a 15 or 16+% Lucas Glover. Just no thanks. I will gladly go somewhere else and try to find a little bit of uniqueness. Hoagie, I don't love, but 7% is pretty good. But that's really about it in the upper sevens. I'm just so all in on Alex Noren. I think Brendan Todd will be good. You don't want to ignore Matt Kuchar. He's had a lot of success here. He rates quite a bit lower than I would have expected him to. He hasn't been as good on these shorter par fours, but ignore Matt Kuchar at your own risk. He has played very well here. I'm going to use Svensson. Probably use a touch of Tom Hoagie. That's really about it in terms of the upper sevens. Going into the mid and low sevens, I like Andrew Putnam quite a bit. The number one putter on average and fast Bermuda greens. You also see he plays the longer par fours, the 450 to 500 par fours, very, very well. He's actually been very good with his irons as well. So I like Andrew Putnam. If I get 10% on Andrew Putnam, I'd be pretty darn happy. Mitchell is interesting, especially since he is all or nothing. I believe he is 3 for 5 in making the cut here at the Sony at the past 5 years. 3 top 20 finishes and 2 missed cuts, so it's quite literally all or nothing. If you like what you see, if you think the course is going to be a little bit more difficult than what I do, I would take a look at Keith Mitchell. I think I'm going to have to be out because I have it so easy this week. Ben Griffin. I like Ben Griffin a lot in the lower sevens at 74. Not too worried about his short par 4 performance. Look at the putter. The other length of par 4s is very strong. And he's been good. He's been pretty darn good when it's easy. 34th, 36th, and 49th across those 3 scoring metrics when it's easy. So I like Ben Griffin. A lot of those in the industry are taking a look at Adrian Dumont de Chassart, I think is how you say it. I'll just call him Adrian. I don't have anything on him. Just like Will Zalatoris, I'm going to wait on Adrian and see how well he plays. If he plays well, I will be happy to be late on him. But I just don't have anything on him. I'm anxious to see what he's like. Moving elsewhere into the low 7s. Look, if you're talking about putting, you got to think about Nick Taylor. I know this is Bermuda. It's not his best surface. You still got to think about Nick Taylor. I know he doesn't rate out very well for me, but anytime a tournament is focused on putting, think about Nick Taylor. It's going to be a great story if Gary Woodland plays well, coming off of his brain surgery, just like Zalatoris, just like Adrian Dumont. I'm just going to wait and see where he is. I'm going to wait and see where Gary Woodland is off of his injury. 3 players in the very, very low 7s that I want to highlight for you all. Alex Smalley. Yes, you will have to stomach a very, very, very poor putter. It is what it is. He's just not a very good putter. The short par 4s are good. 5th in irons, 2nd in opportunities, top 20 in birdies or better gained, even with that poor putter. When it's easy, you just got to pray for a field average week on the greens for Alex Smalley. I will do that this week. I do think Alex Smalley will give himself a lot of opportunities. Just got to hope that the putter's there. Seeing Alex Smalley at 4.5%, I love seeing that. So I'll take a lot of Alex Smalley. Taylor Montgomery actually is somebody to take a look at. Even though he rates so low, he played extremely well here last year. A very good putter. 3rd in birdies or better gained. It's basically about the easy courses for Taylor Montgomery. So take a look at him. I like Smalley more. I like a couple other players more. But I figured I would mention him since he did finish 12th here last year. Last 2 in the low 7s at 7,000 even both. Ben Coles and S.H. Kim. Love both of these players. Excuse me. Love both of these players. Less than 5% on Ben Coles, less than 2% on S.H. Kim. You see both of them play the short par 4s exceptionally well. S.H. Kim plays both lengths of the par 4s exceptionally well, if I were to scroll down and you could see it. But S.H. Kim playing the par 4s extremely well. And that's enough for me to get on his bandwagon, especially at 2% projected ownership. I'm not worried about the irons. They should be good. But for Ben Coles, look at the irons. Pretty darn good. Look at Ben Coles' performance when it's been easy. 32, 26, and 44. You'll love that. So these are the 2 players that I'm going to stick a lot of uniqueness with. I will lose if these players don't play well. Ben Coles and S.H. Kim I'm going to be using a lot. And that probably tells you the types of lineups that I've been building. Moving into the 6Ks, there are 2 to 3 players I would like to mention for you all, because no one's getting a whole lot of love down here. The one mostly, which makes a lot of sense because he has had a tie for 12th and a runner-up last year, Hayden Buckley. You see the course value. He's been very, very good here. A lot of that's around the putting. Not a whole lot else, though, has been good for Hayden Buckley, at least in terms of the metrics that I use in my mixed condition model. I figured I would mention him, but who I want to highlight for you all first, let's start with Ryan Moore. He has not played well here at all. He is 0 for 4 at Waialae. So let's get that out of the way. But everything to the metrics say he should be pretty good. 3rd in these very short par 4s. He's top 20 in 450 to 500 par fours. He just loves the par fours of this length. Good luck this week, Gabe. Really appreciate you jumping into chat. Again, apologies that I wasn't able to get into yours due to the scheduling conflict. I will be there next week. That is a promise. Good luck this week, Gabe. And if you haven't subscribed to his article, I suggest you do so. It's a very good read. It's a great way to start your preparation every week. But thanks for staying up later than you normally do, Gabe. Really appreciate it. Good luck this week. The Ryan Moore, top 10 and also in with the irons. Love Ryan Moore this week. So take a look at him if you are dropping into the 6Ks. The other name that I want to mention, and this is admittedly the mad scientist. You're going crazy if you're trying to get the most greedy of greedy lineups in there. All the way down at 6,200. He rated out top 15 for me. Justin Lauer. 8th. Great stream tonight. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thanks, Gabe. Justin Lauer at 6,200. 8th in these shorter par fours. He's also 32nd in the longer par fours. He's not a disaster with the putter. 21st in approach. Where Justin Lauer can get off track is in these good drives gained. He can take himself out of some holes. Obviously, he can't do that if he's going to play well. So that's the issue with Justin Lauer. But in the most greedy of lineups, I don't hate Justin Lauer at 6,200 if you're trying to fit in a couple of 10Ks or maybe a 10 and a couple of 9Ks, because he's going to be unique. The putter won't be an abject failure, I don't think, and he loves these shorter par fours that are prevalent at Waialae. So there's a look at the price board, how I see a lot of the ownerships, where some great pivots and fades are. Let's move to making some lineups. We're going to start with those who play tiers contests. So in tiers, tier 1, we have Ludwig Aubert, Terrell Hatton, and Matt Fitzpatrick. Very easy for me. Again, I can just only go by the projected ownerships of a classic contest. Give me Ludwig Aubert. It's not particularly close. I don't want really any part of Fitzpatrick. If you think Aubert and Hatton are comparable in terms of ownerships, you could think about Hatton, but I still will take Ludwig Aubert in terms of tier 1. Tier 2, Sahith Theegala, Brian Harman, Corey Connors, Eric Cole, and Chris Kirk. I actually don't hate Theegala, even though he's the lowest rated of these players. Connors is going to be your safe play, your very high floor, your very low ceiling, because he's going to be one of the most popular players in tier 2. I don't hate Theegala because he should be the most unique. Aubert, I guess I'll just go with I'll go with Theegala in tier 2, and that'll be kind of my uniqueness, my home run play, if you will. Tier 3, Russell Henley, Will Zalatoris, JT Poston, Hideki, and Siwoo Kim. There you go. Don't care. Russell Henley. I don't care if he's the most popular player in all of tiers contests. Give me Russell Henley. I'm all in on Russell Henley this week. Tier 3, no questions asked. I don't hate Poston, but I'm just so much higher on Henley. It's not close. Tier 4, Ben On, Cam Davis, Denny McCarthy, Harris English, Justin Rose, Stephen Yeager, Keegan Bradley. I'll take Denny McCarthy. He can always light it up, and I do expect some solid performance here. Harris English also isn't a bad option, but I'll take Denny McCarthy in tier 4. Tier 5, Adam Hadwin, Alex Noren, Brendan Todd, Akshay Bhatia, Matt Kuchar, Adam Svensson, and Lucas Glover. I'm going to take Alex Noren. It's not particularly close. If you are a big proponent on prior course history or having played the course well before, then you want to take a long look at Kuchar or Svensson in that case. I don't hate either. I think I would take Svensson in that case. But give me Alex Noren. I think Brendan Todd is also useful. There's 4 really good options in Tier 5, just highest on Alex Noren. Finally, Tier 6, we have Gary Woodland, Alex Smalley, Ben Coles, S.H. Kim, Davis Thompson, Austin Eckroat, and Mark Hubbard. Boy, I started off thinking I was going to take Alex Smalley, and then Ben Coles and S.H. Kim are there. The worry about Alex Smalley is that putter. So he could take himself out of the tournament with that putter, which is going to kill you in a tiers contest. So I think it's between Coles and S.H. Kim. I'll take S.H. Kim. I think it's pretty much 1A and 1B here. But I'll take S.H. Kim. So again, quick recap. Tiers contest from the show tonight. I'll go Obear, Tagala as my home run unique play. Tier 3 is Russell Henley. No questions asked. Tier 4 is Denny McCarthy. Don't hate Harris English, but I'll take McCarthy. Tier 5 is Alex Noren. Tier 6, I will take S.H. Kim. Ben Coles is a very close 1B. All right, let's go to Classic contests in our big GPPs. First thing we're going to want to do, let's figure out the chalky lineups that we expect to see quite a bit in our big GPPs, and we'll try to maneuver ourselves around that. So it looks like if we're going to build these chalky lineups, they're going to be going balanced, looking at something like Corey Connors. I'll use Chris Kirk only because I'm so high on Russell Henley, but this very well could be a Corey Connors, Russell Henley start. And you see, they're going to be looking into building much more of a balanced build. So you're coming down to Justin Rose at 8,200. At 77 is Adams Vincent, who I don't mind. It's just very chalky. This could very well be Lucas Glover as well. Not too much beyond Andrew Putnam at 10% is getting played. So, in fact, we might have to drop down a little bit here and go JT Poston and bottom this out at Andrew Putnam, who's at 10%. It actually might be a little bit higher. Andrew Putnam, Lucas Glover, Adams Vincent. That leaves 8,200, which is Dustin Rose. So 16% matching in your big GPPs. This is gross. This is probably one of the more common lineups that you'll probably see, or something very similar to it. Connors, obvious play. It's a good play, but obvious play. JT Poston, Adams Vincent. Don't want any part of this. There's no problem with having, one of these guys, maybe even 2 of these guys in a lineup, but you can't put all of these guys together. It's going to be way too chalky. If our fellow contestants are going stars and scrubs, you're probably going to see something to the effect of Terrell Hatton. If they drop down into the lower 7s, Ryo Hitsatsune, Nick Taylor at 10%. We'll bottom them out at Nick Taylor. If they go Terrell Hatton, let's go. They went all the way down to JT Poston. I'll try Chris Kirk. Might have to squeeze in a little bit more into this lower 7s here. Let's see. There's Taylor at 9.8. I used Putnam last time. Maybe Spawn at 76. Perhaps could be getting a look. Let's see. After Chris Kirk, you're looking at... let's throw Brendan Todd into this. You could go... We'll say Svensson, 7,400. I don't know if anyone at 74 is getting a whole lot of love. Doesn't look like it. Griffin's really only at 7%. I'll throw Putnam. Just understand this is 100 over. So maneuver that $100 around a little bit. But you can see this is where the contrarian strategy is this week. It's in these stars and scrubs lineups. And the more you're willing to go lower in the price board, the more contrarian you're going to be. But this looks like a potentially chalky-ish stars and scrubs lineup with Hatton, Chris Kirk maybe dropping down to, we use Poston. I'm trying to use different names. Maybe Ben On could be another option for people there, and then they maneuver the rest of this money around. But looking like a fairly chalky stars and scrubs there. So how are we going to maneuver around all of this chalk? Well, I'm telling you, if you're going to build a balanced lineup, it's going to be a challenge, especially since there's not a lot in the 8s that I like, other than perhaps being on Denny McCarthy a little bit. So in a balanced construction, I'm still going to start with Russell Henley, and he's very popular, but that's where I'm going to go. I'm just extremely confident in it. And then I would come down to maybe a JT Poston. I really don't want to use Hideki if I don't have to. Again, I'm going to wait and see on Will Zalatoris. So you can see where your issue is in building balanced lineups is you're going to start off pretty darn chalky, and you're going to have to find a lot of uniqueness very, very quickly. We'll go Russell Henley and Chris Kirk. It's not great. Actually, yeah, let's back that off. We can go to Denny McCarthy here. Go 96 and then drop all the way down to 84. It leaves us 8,000 per player. We can hover around this 8,000 area. Again, Harris English, I don't hate. Not in love with it, don't hate it. Adam Hadwin at 8,000 is somebody you can look at who's very unique. Rated out 10th for me. I don't think I would have him quite that high, but very good putter on fast and average Bermuda speed greens. Loves shorter par 4s. Lot to like here with Adam Hadwin. And then other players that I'm very high on, Alex Noren. I'd go there. You can probably go Adam Svensson now that we've gotten a lot of the uniqueness in here. Leaves us 8,400 per. Go where you're comfortable here. Maybe it is Harris English. Maybe it is. Maybe you like a Justin Rose. A little bit higher here in terms of percentage at, just under 13%. You could probably go to Stefan Jaeger and keep it right at 11-ish. You're looking at a mostly probably unique lineup thanks to the combination of Hadwin and Noren, McCarthy. But you see the difficulty in building these balanced lineups. You're going to be matching more than likely some other lineups in your big GPPs. And that's why I have really, really tried to give you ideas for some stars and scrubs. And if Aubert is indeed this much more unique than Tyrrell Hatton, just all in on Ludwig Aubert, I'll go Aubert, and I will go, I'll throw Eric Cole into this. This would be Russell Henley for me, but I'll throw Eric Cole in this just to gain a little bit of that uniqueness factor and to throw in some different names. Alex Noren again would be in this. We could maybe do a bin on. I'll throw in Brendan Todd. I think Brendan Todd will play well this week. But you see, we've got 7,300 per player, and at the bottom, it's the two guys that I highlighted right at 7,000. S.H. Kim and Ben Coles. 5%, 2%. We're at 7,900 here for a player, and we're not even close to that magic 10% number. I mean, use basically who you want. I use Todd. You can throw in Svensson. Throw in Kuchar. He'd be, especially if you're a big believer in prior course performance, you could take a look at Matt Kuchar. You're at a sub 10% projected own lineup. You're looking at more than likely a unique lineup in a big GPP. If it is duplicated, it's not very often. And that's where a lot of the potential for massive amounts of success lie this week is in these stars and scrubs. If you want to get extremely greedy, as I mentioned, there are a couple of 6K plays we can look at. I highlighted Ryan Moore for you all at 6,700. You can go all the way down to Justin Lauer at 6,200. I'm going to use Justin Lauer only because I'm going to try to get as greedy as possible in this. So this would be Obear. This will be Terrell Hatton. Although, I don't actually, you know what? Let's throw in Sahith Theegala. I think Theegala will play fine this week. Again, I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to try Russell Henley. Could be Chris Kirk. Might be a little bit too expensive. But let's see. Let's go with Russell Henley. Maybe JT Poston. Oh, yeah. You can do something like Obear, Henley, Poston, or Obear, Cole, Matsuyama, or Obear, Henley, Kirk, maybe. Just load up at the top here because you're going all the way down to the 6,200 for Lauer. You got 7,300 per player. You can still come up to 7,600 if you're at a JJ Spawn, if you're at a Tom Hoagie. Andrew Putnam should be fairly good. I'll throw Ben Griffin into this. I think Ben Griffin will be good this week. Leaves us 7,200 to round out this very greedy lineup. Nick Taylor, I know he doesn't rate out well for me, but I think Nick Taylor is going to be good. Alex Smalley at 7,100. I really like. 10% again, right at that magic 10% number. You're looking at more than likely a unique lineup. If it is duplicated, it's not very often. You've got 2, maybe even 3 of the tournament favorites here. So that is where you're going to be gaining a lot of leverage on your fellow contestants if you're willing to go stars and scrubs, and especially if you're willing, or the lower you're willing to go in the price board, especially if you're willing to drop into 6Ks, you're going to gain a lot of leverage on your fellow contestants. But that's what I have for you all tonight. Looks like there were a few votes. So we have one vote for excellent in terms of how well the Century players performed this week, and the majority here is in good. So contenders and a few top 20s. I think I would tend to agree with that one. You'll probably have a couple of contenders, and maybe 3 or 4 more top 20s is what my guess will be on performance from the Century players. My one and done pick for the week that starts this week, I'm going to take Russell Henley. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. The first week of the one and done contest, just give me Russell Henley. I'm very confident that he's going to play well, may even win it. But I'm confident that he will play well and make some money. So with that, that is the show this evening. Thanks to Gabe for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tuned in, watched, listened, and supports the channel. Whether that's liking the videos, commenting, subscribing, participating in the poll question. I always appreciate all the support. Love what I do, taking an in-depth look at sports statistics and trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Reminder that next week, Calls will be back on regular show time, especially for Wednesday, so 9 p.m. Eastern. The usual schedule, of course, Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday, initial research, data dive, and DFS tactics. Thanks again for all the support, for all of the wagers you have made this week for the Sony Open, for all of the DFS contests you play this week for the Sony Open, for this weekend and every weekend. May all your bets be profitable.